On BBC One Wales with Michael Burke and Jamie Owen.
The worst storms for a decade have paralysed half the country. 100-mile-an-hour winds spread destruction and death across the south. Floods caused chaos on the roads. The rail network effectively closed down. One of 100 rescues the baby who escaped the floods in a basket. And the Swede who is to be the England football team's first foreign manager.
In Wales today, roads become rivers. The police ask hundreds of people to evacuate their homes along the banks of the River Dee and escape through an upstairs window, the only way out for this couple.
Good evening. They were the worst storms, at least since 1987, and they're still not over. The winds gusted to very nearly 100 miles an hour. A month's rain fell in the morning, and the southern half of the country was largely paralysed. Several motorways and countless smaller roads were closed. Half the troubled rail network was effectively shut down. There were more than 100 flood warnings across the country, and severe warnings are still in place tonight for many rivers in southern England, East Anglia, Wales and Manchester. The gales left more than 100,000 homes without power. Tonight, parts of the country between Bristol to Stoke-on-Trent are still in the dark. In northwest England, blizzards closed many roads in Greater Manchester and Lancashire. And the whole of the country has suffered huge delays and disruption on the railways, roads and at airports. Nicholas Witchell on the storm and its aftermath.
The storms burst along the south coast as Britain slept. A ferocious onslaught by wind and rain, with gusts reaching nearly 100 miles an hour in some places, and sheets of rain up to 2 inches of it in 24 hours. Britain's coastline has not experienced anything on quite such a scale for more than a decade, but the sea defences here at Chesil Beach in Dorset held. Other structures were not so resilient. The winds tore off the roofs of some homes as their owners slept inside.
It was 5 to 6 this morning. I just heard a huge noise and then a ripping sound. So I just covered myself up with a quilt, and then I saw daylight. That's when I knew the roof was gone. It's hard to say how I feel at the moment. It's just devastated at the moment. I don't know where we go from here.
Hundreds of trees were blown down, causing widespread damage on the roads and to property. Some were very fortunate to have survived. In Tunbridge Wells in Kent, an oak tree crashed through the side of this home.
That luckily came down just catching the corner of the house, broke the window, damaged the roof, but we're lucky because if it had come down across the middle of the house, I might not be here talking to you now.
Railway lines were blocked by debris. Hardly any train services were running in the south, Midlands or west of England or in Wales. Out in the Channel, sea conditions were so rough, ferries were unable to dock. Dover Port was closed for 16 hours. At one stage, 6,000 people were stranded aboard ferries, forced to remain at sea.
It was fairly frightening, yes. Particularly when we were told that Dover was closed and that we went into shelter at Deal, and we just went round and round in circles with 5 other boats.
Off the Channel island of Guernsey, an Italian freighter had to be abandoned after getting into difficulties. The ship is carrying dangerous chemicals which are leaking into the sea. The high winds and driving rain disrupted air travel, with many flights in and out of Heathrow and other airports cancelled or subject to long delays. Chaos too on the roads.
Broke it down!
Many routes were blocked by floodwater and many drivers got into difficulties. Appeals from police and motoring organisations to stay at home were widely ignored, and at one point the RAC was dealing with 2,000 calls for help every hour. It was a day when many who'd ventured out wished they'd stayed at home, and others had reason to be extra thankful that they'd made it to safety.
Oh my God! I'm 7 months pregnant! Oh my God!
Emergency services in landlocked counties took to rubber boats to evacuate people from homes which had been inundated with water. For some, though, as the flood waters rose, the only escape was by air. A Royal Navy helicopter was called out to a house which stands on an island in the heavily flooded River Tamar in Cornwall. The water had